So number one, we got a root word. That root word is going to be on your attendance quizzes here a couple days this week. The root word is cyto, C-Y-T-O. Who looked that up already? What does that mean? Good, Angelina. That's very intuitive of you. It just means cell. Cyto means cell. So we're going to be talking about the cytoplasm, the cytoskeleton, endo and exocytosis. And anytime you see C-Y-T-O, that just means cell. And then what's the basic unit that's all organisms are made of? I said cells. Good. Good, Leslie, Angelina, Shayla, biology. Yep. So number one and number two, same answer. Cyto means cell. The basic unit that all organisms are made of, cells. And then name something that has these units. What has cells? Humans have cells, yep. Yes, we do. Living things, Angel, yep. Lungs have cells. Good. Lungs are part of a human. They have their own special cells. What about something that's non-human or non-animal? What other living things can have cells? Depends on the kind of food. Some food used to be animals. Plants, grass, there you go, yep. So vegetables, things that used to be plants have cells. Good. All right. So what are the different types of cells that make up living things is our essential question for today. There's two main types that we're going to talk about. And our key concept, cells are the basic unit of life. That picture right there is a picture of what's called a macrophage, which is a special type of white blood cell, the big yellow splat. And the little red rods are bacteria. So our white blood cells keep us healthy by destroying bacteria, and that's what that cell is doing. That cell's using its little tentacles to trap bacteria and suck it in and eventually destroy it. And we have hundreds of different types of cells. We're made of like 3 trillion cells. But we have hundreds of different types, whether they're blood cells, brain cells, lung cells, heart cells, they're all different. So the cell theory has 3 principles. We talked about a theory before. Theories have lots and lots and lots of evidence to back it up. It's not just a guess, it's not just a hypothesis. It is a scientific fact. And there are 3 principles to this theory. Number 1, all organisms are made of cells. An organism is just any living thing. Number 2, all existing cells are produced by other living cells. So cells don't just pop up out of nowhere. They come from something that already exists. And the cell is the most basic unit of life. There are organisms, tiny little organisms that are only made up of 1 cell. They are still considered a living thing because they have at least 1 cell. And that picture is of a cell dividing, splitting into 2. When we get to chapter 5, we'll talk about cell division and how that happens. Your ed puzzle this week is about the cell theory and all of the different scientists that made the cell theory happen. Cells are very small. You have to use a microscope to look at them. If we were in class, it's actually really easy to get your cells from inside your cheek. and you scrape out the cells from inside your cheek and you smear them on a little glass slide, and we could look at them under the microscope. So they're very small. You can't see them individually unless you have a microscope. All cells have some basic stuff in common. You guys are going to be putting this on a Venn diagram later. But all cells have genetic material, those nucleic acids that we talked about last chapter. Could be DNA, could be RNA, but all cells have some kind of nucleic acids. All cells are surrounded by a membrane that separates the inside from the outside. In the picture, that's the pink layer on the outside. Keeps all the stuff in and keeps unwanted stuff out. We call it the cell membrane or the plasma membrane. Either one will do. You'll see it both ways.
I have a question.
Yes.
What does RNA stand for? Like
ribonucleic acid.
And then DNA?
Deoxyribonucleic acid.
Oh, all right, thank you.
They're very similar. In chapter 8, we'll talk about, the whole chapter is about DNA and RNA. All cells are filled with cytoplasm. It's the jelly-like material that holds everything in place. In the picture, it would be all the yellow stuff, kind of the background. If you've ever had a Jell-O salad, cytoplasm is the consistency of Jell-O. It's not liquid, but it's also not solid. And then in a Jell-O salad, you usually have fruit that's like stuck in there. There's two types of cells, two main types of cells. The first type is called eukaryotic. That's how you pronounce that word. The EU, you pronounce U like Europe. It means true. And then the karyo, K-A-R-Y-O, means nucleus. Those root words and prefixes are going to be on your vocabulary this week for your attendance quizzes. So eukaryotic cells have a true nucleus. So in addition to a membrane and cytoplasm, they have a nucleus which acts like a brain, directs the cell's activities, tells it what to make, when to make it, how much to make. Eukaryotic cells also have organelles, which are like mini organs. They each have their own specific function inside of the cell. So all of these cells are going to be just a little bit different depending on where they're found. So our brain cells have a nucleus and they have organelles. But they're going to be a little different than our heart cells. It has its own nucleus and organelles. Depending on what the overall function of those cells are. The other type of cell is called a prokaryotic cell. We just said karyo means nucleus, but pro means before. So these cells evolved before nucleus evolved. So these have been around for millions of years before nucleus. Prokaryotic cells have genetic material in the form of DNA or RNA, but no true nucleus. A nucleus concentrates the DNA or RNA in a specific spot. And a prokaryotic cell just has DNA and RNA floating inside, not closed off from the rest of the cell. It also doesn't have many organelles. It has one, but eukaryotic cells have like 10. We'll go over all those organelles next week in section 3.2. It only has a membrane, cytoplasm, and ribosomes. Ribosomes being the one organelle it does have. We'll talk about those, what those do next week. All right, and your assignments. You just use your notes. So at the end of your notes, draw a Venn diagram. If you don't know what a Venn diagram is, it's right there on the bottom for you. You're going to do the similarities and differences between prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells. Include examples of each in the different parts of the diagram. So you put prokaryotic on one side, put prokaryotic on one side, you'll put eukaryotic on the other side. In the middle, you tell me what's the same. There's going to be like 3 or 4 things that are the same. Eukaryotic cells are going to have a couple of things different. And then prokaryotic cells, you're basically going to tell me what they don't have. What's missing from the prokaryotic cells. And you can get them all from your notes. You don't have to do any extra research. You just have to go back and read the notes that we just took.